I wasn't going to make this video. I'm literally in that mode where you're about to move on with your day, phone face down, brain trying to be normal, and then you see one headline and it's like, nope, not today. Because everyone is talking about Hormuz like it's a movie trailer. Like the only way this gets real is if you see some dramatic naval blockade clip on your screen. But the real story is quieter than that. And it's scarier than that. Because it's not about Hollywood. It's about paperwork. It's about insurance. It's about the part of the system you don't see until it's gone. And I think you deserve the full story. So here it is. I'm recording this right now, Chicago time. Comment where you're watching from because I like seeing how far these videos travel, and it also helps keep the timeline clear when this story moves fast. And real quick, if you value this no-drama, straight-shooting breakdown, do me a favor, subscribe and comment FinTalk OG so the algorithm knows you want more of this. Now, in case you haven't seen what I'm talking about, here's the claim making the rounds. Strait of Hormuz is closed. Oil is about to go vertical. This is the shock of the decade. And then you get the other side. It's not closed. It's just fear. The market will shrug it off, and on the surface, that sounds airtight. Either it's closed or it isn't. Either the ships are moving or they're not. That's clean. It's also incomplete. Because the first place these stories usually get weak is they assume the only lever is military, like the only way you stop oil is with a ship or a missile. But the system has another lever, and it's the lever that makes the entire trade legal and financeable in the first place: insurance. Here's what nobody wants to say out loud. A shipping lane can be open in geography and closed in finance at the same time. That's not a conspiracy. That's plumbing. If the pipes don't have pressure, nothing flows. So I'm going to break down three things. First, what it actually means when insurers back away and war risk premiums jump. Second, how that turns into tanker rate spikes, stranded barrels, and paper market whiplash. And third, what you watch next, like a normal person, so you don't get emotionally manipulated by every new clip. Let's start with what we can verify. We've already seen reporting that supertanker rates surged and that insurers have dropped or tightened war risk cover in the region. That's not random fear. That's the financial system doing what it always does when it smells uncontrolled risk. It pulls the plug. CNBC specifically highlighted the insurance angle and tanker rate impact in the current Middle East crisis context. Time also laid out the basic reality. Even the possibility of disruption through Hormuz has outsized consequences because the world's oil and gas trade runs through a few choke points and insurance providers get nervous fast. Now let me be blunt. Most people do not understand what marine insurance actually is in this context. They think it's like car insurance, like, oh, you'll pay more, but you still drive. No. This is more like you're trying to get on a plane, and the airline says, we're not flying that route unless we have clearance, coverage, and the regulators sign off. You can stand in the airport screaming, the runway is still there. And they're going to look at you like you're adorable. The runway being there isn't the point. Here's the clean way to think about it. A tanker voyage is not just a captain and a ship. It's a stack of contracts, a charter party, a cargo sale agreement, financing, often letters of credit, counterparties, and then the big one, insurance coverage that satisfies everybody's legal and financing requirements. If that last piece gets yanked, the trip can go from possible to unfinanceable overnight. And the scary part is, it doesn't have to be a full, official, declared shutdown. It can be a soft closure, a closure by refusal. So what happens when war risk premiums jump or coverage gets restricted? Two immediate things happen at the same time. First, the cost to move oil goes up. Not the price of oil itself at first, the cost to move it. That shows up in freight rates, longer route pricing, and everything that looks like, why is this suddenly so expensive even though supply exists? You can see a similar mechanism in the Red Sea context where attacks increased shipping times and freight rates, same concept. Longer, riskier routes tighten effective capacity. Second, risk managers start saying no. And when risk managers say no, traders can scream, governments can posture, and Twitter can meme all day. It doesn't matter, because the person with the stamp on the paperwork just became the most powerful person in the room. Now here's a question for you, and I want you to actually answer it in the comments because it tells me what kind of market we're dealing with. Do you think the bigger risk right now is oil supply disappears, or is it oil exists but can't move smoothly, meaning we get price spikes then? Crashes, then spikes again. Which one is more likely in your mind? Okay, now here's where it gets interesting. Everyone knows Hormuz is important. They'll say 20% of the world's oil like it's a trivia fact. But they don't connect it to the second-order effects. If you take even a partial disruption, partial meaning not a dramatic stoppage, just a slowdown, what happens? It's like a restaurant. The kitchen still exists. The chefs still exist. The food still exists. But the delivery truck doesn't show up on time. So the restaurant starts 86ing items. They raise prices. People get mad. Some customers leave. And then when the truck finally arrives, the restaurant isn't fine. It's chaotic. They overorder. They underorder. They waste some inventory. They run out again. That's supply chain stress. Oil is the same, except instead of one restaurant, it's the world. So insurance killed the trade doesn't mean the ocean disappeared. It means the system that makes global trade predictable just got sandpapered. And that is exactly how you get paper market whiplash. Let me explain that in plain English. In the paper market, futures, options, swaps, price is trying to do two jobs at once. It's trying to price actual barrels, and it's trying to price uncertainty about future barrels. When uncertainty goes vertical, price can overshoot. Then people see the overshoot, and they take profits. Then someone says the shock is temporary, and the price drops. Then another headline hits, and the price spikes again. Reuters has even pointed out in a related framing that oil derivatives can signal traders believe a Middle East shock may be short-lived, meaning the options market and the curve structure start telling you the probability distribution is wide, but the base case might still be normalization. That disconnect between scary visuals and probabilistic pricing is where retail gets chewed up. So if you're watching this thinking, okay, so oil is going to the moon, slow down. That's one path. It's not the only path. A correlation is not a contract. Now, before we get deeper, I need to say one thing clearly. I'm not doing doom porn here. I'm explaining mechanism. Because if you understand mechanism, you stop getting emotionally blackmailed by headlines. So let's talk about tanker rates and why they matter even if you never plan to trade a tanker stock in your life. A tanker is like a moving storage unit. When routes get longer or risk gets higher, fewer tankers are effectively available because they're tied up longer and operators demand more money for risk. That's not moral. That's not political. That's supply and demand. And here's the twist. You can have plenty of oil in the world and still have localized shortages and price spikes because the logistics layer is compromised. That's how the soft closure becomes real. Now, the insurance piece is the trigger. The tanker rate spike is the transmission. And the outcome is this. Some barrels don't arrive where they normally arrive, when they normally arrive, at the cost they normally arrive. So what does that actually mean for you? It means inflation risk comes back into the room even if you thought it was leaving. It means central banks and bond markets start paying attention again. It means the stock market can get selective. Energy up, transport down, airlines down, and the broad indexes chop around like a confused animal. And yes, that's already in the air. Energy stocks often rise with oil spikes, while oil-consuming sectors feel pain. The consumer narrative becomes gas prices, but the market narrative becomes margins. Now, let's do the part nobody does on YouTube because it's not as sexy. Let's separate crude from products. Crude is the feedstock. Products, gasoline, diesel, jet fuel are what hit your wallet and the economy. And geopolitical stress can tighten products even more than crude because refining is its own bottleneck. This is why refinery margins and diesel pricing can become a problem even when crude supply looks okay. The EIA has discussed how geopolitical developments can contribute to elevated diesel prices, and that matters because diesel is the bloodstream of the real economy: trucking, shipping, construction. So when you see oil up, don't just think oil up, ask, are crack spreads blowing out? Are distillate stocks tightening? Are refiners constrained? Because the real pain often shows up there. Now, skeptical counterpoint time. Could this all fade? Sure, it's possible. We could wake up, see de-escalation headlines, and risk premiums compress fast. Tanker availability improves. Insurers relax terms, and the market gives back the spike like it never happened. And I'm going to say something that might annoy both sides. The "it's over" crowd and the "it's the end of the world" crowd can both be wrong on timing. You can get a relief rally and still have a structurally higher risk premium for months. Both worlds can be true at different times. That's plausible. Here's how it can fail. If insurance markets remain tight, even without a new dramatic event, you can still keep effective capacity constrained. That's the thing about fear pricing. It's sticky. It doesn't always unwind instantly. And if you want proof that logistics chaos can persist, look at the Red Sea example. Even when you're not seeing non-stop breaking news on your feed, rerouting and freight impacts can keep rippling. The EIA's Red Sea analysis makes the point clearly: shipping times and freight rates increased as routes changed. Okay, now let's talk about paper whipsaws and what to watch, because this is where retail gets wrecked. If you want to understand whether this is building or fading, you don't just watch the headline price of Brent or WTI. Here's what you watch next. 1. War risk insurance language and commentary, not just premiums, coverage terms. When insurers start excluding routes or requiring additional security protocols, that's the canary. 2. Tanker rates and charter availability. If freight keeps rising, that tells you the physical system is still stressed even if oil price pulls back. 3. The futures curve. Is the front end tight relative to later months? That's the market telling you immediate barrels matter more than future barrels. That's backwardation stress behavior. And if you don't understand contango backwardation, go learn it, because it's one of the most powerful truth signals in commodities. 4. Implied volatility. If options are pricing huge moves, that means the market is admitting uncertainty, and you should size accordingly. And here's my second question for you. Are you watching oil because you're trying to trade it, or are you watching oil because you're trying to understand what it will do to stocks, inflation, and your cost of living? Tell me which one you are, because the strategy is different. Now, let's get practical. So what do you actually do with this information? Here's a simple action plan. No drama. Step 1. Decide what you're actually exposed to. Write it down. Are you exposed through energy stocks, index funds, airlines, shipping, your job, your commuting? If you can't name your exposure, you're going to react emotionally to the wrong thing. Step 2. If you're an investor, separate hedge from bet. A hedge is something you can hold without needing to be right on timing. A bet is something that requires timing. Most people accidentally turn their hedge into a bet because they oversize it. Step 3. Pick 2 or 3 indicators you will track and ignore the rest. For example, tanker rates, curve structure, and EIA inventory/product data. The EIA Weekly Petroleum Status Report exists for a reason. If you want a regular reality check, use it. And if you're a trader, keep it sane. Oil doesn't need leverage to be exciting. It will provide the excitement for free. Now, let's map 2 plausible paths without pretending we can predict the exact candle. Path 1 is escalation by friction. Not necessarily more explosions, just more friction. Insurers stay tight, tanker rates remain elevated, routes are disrupted, and the market keeps a persistent geopolitical premium. In that world, you get higher average prices, higher volatility, and more sector rotation. Energy wins, oil consumers struggle, inflation expectations get twitchy. Path 2 is de-escalation and normalization. Risk premium compresses, insurers relax, logistics normalize, and crude gives back a big portion of the spike. In that world, a lot of late longs get trapped, and the narrative flips from shortage to glut in about 10 minutes. That's usually when retail feels betrayed, because the story they were sold was guaranteed. I'm not predicting it. I'm saying it's within the set of things this market is capable of doing. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. Even if the physical oil keeps flowing, you can still get economically damaging outcomes. Because markets don't need a full shutdown to hurt you. They just need instability. Instability changes behavior. Companies hoard inventory. Buyers overpay to secure supply. Sellers hesitate, waiting for higher prices. Shipping schedules get messy. And that creates a feedback loop where the system becomes less efficient. And inefficiency is a tax. And the people who pay that tax are not the hedge funds. Hedge funds trade the tax. The people who pay it are households and businesses that need fuel to function. And if you want the cleanest example of second-order effects, look at natural gas and LNG. When the Middle East risk flares, LNG pricing can jump hard, and Europe and Asia can feel it through competition for cargoes. CNBC has covered the risk framing around gas and LNG prices surging on supply fears tied to the Middle East situation. That's why this isn't just an oil trade. This is a macro trade. This touches currencies, rates, equities, and politics. Now I'm going to give you the rules I use, and you can steal them. 1. Decide your maximum allocation first. Write it down. If you're losing sleep, you're too big. 2. When something runs hard and you're up a lot, take some off. Not all, some. If your position doubles, consider trimming half. Lock in the original bet. Let the rest run. 3. Don't confuse narrative with mechanism. War is a narrative. Insurance terms, freight, curve structure, inventories, those are mechanisms. Trade mechanisms. Respect narratives, but don't worship them. 4. The best time to buy isn't always when you're most excited. The best time to buy is when you can still breathe. And let me add one more, because this matters in a crisis tape. Don't get cute. A lot of people blow up trying to be the hero for one day. This isn't a one-day story. Time is the weapon here. Logistics don't pivot on a dime. It's like steering a cargo ship. You can't just yank the wheel and instantly change direction. Okay, quick recap so we're tight. Here's what we covered. The Strait of Hormuz can be open on a map and closed in finance if insurance coverage gets pulled or priced so high that voyages become unworkable. That's not theoretical. There's active reporting describing insurers dropping war risk protection and tanker rates soaring in this crisis environment. The consequence is not just oil up. The consequence is volatility, freight spikes, product tightness, and sector rotation, energy versus oil consumers, plus inflation risk creeping back in through diesel, gasoline, and LNG channels. And if you want to track what's real, you watch mechanisms, insurance terms, tanker rates, curve structure, implied volatility, and hard data like EIA weekly petroleum stats, not just viral clips. Now, here are my questions for you. Do you think this plays out more like a short shock that fades or a longer friction story where the premium sticks? And are you positioned for this through energy exposure, or are you mostly worried about how it hits inflation and the rest of the market? Drop your answer below and tell me where you're watching from. If you got value out of this, subscribe and comment FinTalk OG so I know you want to follow up when the next big signal hits: insurance, freight, curve, inventories, whatever it is. And if this helped you, share it with someone who's staring at oil charts and getting emotionally whipped around by every headline. All right, take care of yourself, stay sharp, keep your head clear, and I'll talk to you soon. And just so we're crystal clear, this is educational content and commentary. It's my take based on publicly discussed information and my own reasoning, and it's not personal financial advice. I'm not your advisor. I don't know your goals or your risk tolerance, and I could be wrong. Do your own homework. Consider your situation. And if you need personal advice, get it from a qualified professional who knows your situation.